The last two problems are both decimal equations. Decimal equations can also be changed back into whole number equations if you don't like decimals as much as you like whole numbers. I personally like whole numbers better than everything. They're my best friend. Fractions are my second best friend. Decimals are my least best friend. They're all friends, but I put them in order. Don't tell decimals, they get complex. But anyway, 0.4x minus 0.2 equals negative 0.16. The requirement of getting rid of decimals in an equation is real simple. Every single term has to have the same number of decimal places. So if this is what's written in my book, the first thing that goes in my paper is going to look like this. 0.40x minus 0.20 is equal to negative 0.16. That has two decimal places, that has one, that has one. I'm going to modify both of these so they have two decimal places by adding a 0 to the end of the numbers. So again, that's what's in my book, that's the first thing that goes in my paper. Two decimal places, two decimal places, two decimal places. X does not count as a decimal place. We have a decimal number being multiplied by x. The decimal number is right here, that needs to have two decimal places in it. Alright? Once everything has the same number of decimal places, I'm going to multiply by whatever power of 10 it takes to get rid of the decimals, in this case 100. Multiplying by 100 moves all the decimal points two spaces right. So move that two spaces right, I get 40x. Move that one two spaces right, I get minus 20. Move this one two spaces right, I get negative 16. Another way of thinking about that is just drop off the decimals. Once they all have the same number of decimal places, all the decimals drop off and you're left with a whole number or integer equation. Minus 20 has to be dealt with first, so plus 20 plus 20. Equal signs right there, same thing happening to both sides. Minus and plus 20 cancel, leaving 40x. Negative 16 and 20 being opposite sign numbers, subtract, and 20 is bigger so it's positive. If 40x equals 4, we divide both sides by 40. Always divide by whatever's in front of x. Here's x being multiplied by 40, we're dividing by 40. 4 over 40 does not make 10, it makes 1/10. Alright, so be careful that if we get a fraction answer, that we get a fraction answer. A lot of people see that 40 divides by 4 and they want a nice pretty number like 10 to be an answer.
Do you care if we leave it as a decimal? Because I still have...
So 0.1 would be the right decimal answer. I prefer fractions to decimals always, but if you put a decimal answer that's a terminating decimal, no problem. Let's say the answer came out to 1/7 and you put 1.14. I'd rather have the whole expanded decimal with the bar over it to be exactly the right answer as opposed to approximately the right answer. So fractions are exactly right where decimals are sometimes approximately right. I prefer to get the exact answer. In this case 0.1 and 1/10 are the same answer, so I wouldn't mind one way or the other. But I always prefer fractions because, again, for me solving equations, I always get to the point where I have no fractions or decimals. So at this point I've got a whole number over a whole number, or integer over integer, so it's just a reducible fraction at that point. Every time I do problems I get to that point. I prefer you to get to that point also.